or card? It's a simple ask at most tills, but the more people choose the latter, the more it shows that financial inclusion is gaining ground. And that has distinct benefits for economic activity and growth. So this is Insights from Africa. I'm Bronwyn Seaborn, and on this episode, we take a look at the evolution of payments. Well, Africa is gradually going digital when it comes to making payments. According to GMSA, Sub-Saharan Africa accounted for 48% of global mobile money accounts in 2024. But World Bank data notes that about 90% of retail transactions in the region are still cash-based. So while we have a healthy adoption of digital payment methods, cash appears to still be king. Joining me to unpack this dynamic in more detail is Rufaidah Hamilton, Head of Payments in South Africa at Standard Bank. Rufaidah, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Bronwyn. It's great to be here. Exciting topic. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Absolutely. So let's jump straight into it. Africa is this global epicenter for mobile money, and yet we nevertheless cling to cash. So as a starting point, why is cash still so attractive in Africa?
So I wanted to start in a different place. I wanted to first say I recently heard an adage someone mentioned, and I'm so sorry I can't tell you who it was, but because I don't remember. But it was something along the lines of the global powers like the US innovate, the others imitate, and the EU regulates, but Africa reinvents. So while we're starting from a position where you're asking me, is cash still king a problem, and why is that the case in the face of such significant and massive global expansion in terms of digitization, particularly in payments, I would say that we're definitely in the right continent to start to see the movement towards greater digitization as we deal with this legacy issue of cash. So there are various issues and reasons around why infrastructurally and systemically cash remains so significant as a payments instrument and a method of payment of choice for even a recipient of a payment. And a lot of those speak to emerging economy challenges like infrastructure, access to digital coverage, access to digital technology, basics like access to affordable data. The areas in Africa where a consumer an ordinary African has absolutely no access to digital coverage. So I think when you're dealing with the conversation around cash, and cash will always be an African and a global major mainstay in terms of payments. I can't see it going away, but certainly on the African continent, we will see reduction in cash. We will see cash persist in various places. And until we deal the infrastructural challenges that prevent greater digital inclusion, we'll still see a lot of comfort in cash and its accessibility. That doesn't mean that cash comes without challenges. In the same way that we rely on digital infrastructure, internet coverage for digital payments and digital inclusion, the challenges associated with cash speak to access to a device that can dispense cash, whether that is a bank-supported ATM or a mobile network operator agent who can dispense cash. Ultimately, cash creates challenges around risk and safety, and the access to it in terms of how close is the nearest ATM continues to be an issue across the continent. So I hope that answers the question. I suppose what I'm saying in conclusion is, yes, cash remains a go-to. There's a comfort around the perceivability, the physical, the transparency that cash brings with it in terms of the transaction, in addition to the fact that there's an anonymity around cash. So that appeals to a certain subsegment of our population base across the African continent that struggles with identification. That is a massive issue in terms of access into the formal infrastructures associated with digital payments and digital banking. The ability to move cash is easier for an undocumented individual, as opposed to in environments where digital identity and digital inclusion is not as much of an issue.
You definitely outline the benefits and the challenges for both payment options there. But from an economic growth perspective, I wonder if there's any correlation between financial inclusion through digital payment adoption and GDP growth. Do you have any idea on whether those two are actually linked? Because in my thinking, I would think they are, because more people participating in the economy must mean more growth.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a data that suggests, and there's a McKinsey report from 2016, and nothing that has, nullified these data points, that true digital inclusion and true access to payments within economies and access to the formal economy by all Africans, South Africans for that matter, has been shown to contribute to growth in terms of GDP by up to 7%, particularly in emerging economies. So what that means is that when you include an informal trader, a tabletop trader on the side of the road that we've come to so love in the African landscape, into the formal economy, where they have access to an app that allows them to accept payments or to make payments, to manage their cash flow and manage their suppliers, you've created a mini ecosystem all on its own, where supplier, trader, their clients are all now formally participating in the formal economy. And I think that speaks volumes to what that does in terms of perceivable growth in the economy, because that trader being more included allows them to grow their business. So, and that growth in that business obviously organically starts to translate into growth in the broader economy. So the idea is, when everybody can have a part of the formal economy through the payment system, and I think over time, the concept of financial inclusion has expanded. So many years ago, when we started the journey on financial inclusion across all emerging economies, conceptually, we all, our headspace went straight to the access to a bank account, so that you could fund the account and move money out of that. And that has largely been achieved. So not 100%, and certainly, the battle is still on in terms of including all Africans into the formal banking system. But for the large majority of South Africans, for example, there's access to a bank account and an affordable bank account.
Right.
But the next step is, well, how do they move money out of those accounts? And that's the next step and the next frontier in terms of financial inclusion, because access to payment services, affordable, accessible payment services, then speaks to how money moves in the economy. And I think it's about when everybody has a ticket to the game, and everybody can participate in the economy, and then Africans stand a good chance of being quite a global giant, to be able to really reinvent how Africans join the party in terms of the payments game.
Yeah, because what we're effectively aiming for, right, is this 000 paradigm of zero processing time, zero risk, and zero cost. Is that within our reach realistically?
So it has to be within our reach. It is definitely the holy trinity that we've seen happen in other economies, where, for example, in India and Brazil, there's a gold standard that's been set for the rest of the emerging economies around what is possible through digital payments and instant payments. And I think for bankers like myself, or also payment practitioners, we look constantly to how we can reinvent this payments space for Africans and South Africans in particular, embracing this holy trinity, or this trinity of payments, which is instant payments, so sub 10 seconds, near to zero cost, so low cost and affordable, as well as risk-free, and making that accessible to individuals every day, always on, 24/7, 365 days a year, is definitely an aspiration for us to achieve in terms of that gold standard. I think it's very possible. The technology is there. We know that. We're seeing this fast pace, and I mean, you can barely keep pace with the advancements in technology. So we have at reach, access to the technology. There are infrastructural challenges I've mentioned, like access to coverage and access to data and access to digital devices for individuals. Can we do it and make it more accessible in terms of affordability? I think we're definitely moving in that direction. And can we create and innovate in terms of accessibility in how we reach our clients or consumers across the African landscape is probably the area we want to focus on next. AI has given us tremendous opportunity in that regard, where we can hyper-personalize how we reach those individuals and how we access or enable access to payment services to them based on what their preferences are, based on what their accessibility constraints may be as well. Right. So yes, possible, the technology is there, the appetite, the desire is there, the will is there. And I think that we're definitely seeing innovation across the continent that's showing all of the movement in the right direction.
Rufaidah, we are unfortunately out of time, so let's leave it there for now. Thank you for your insights. Rufaidah Hamilton is Head of Payments in South Africa at Standard Bank. Well, that's some insight into the dynamics at play as payments evolve, but what do you have to say about it all? We took to the streets here in Johannesburg to ask if you're clinging to cash or if digital is the way forward. Let's take a look.
I prefer card because with card it's faster and convenient.
I prefer card, and it's because it's more convenient. I think the process of taking out cash is also a lot of work. Plus, cash doesn't feel like real money to me. It's just, once I have cash, it's gone, it's spent.
I prefer card payment because it's more convenient. It doesn't require you to pay unnecessary taxes and stuff like that.
I prefer cash, yeah, because cash is always available. Sometimes there's load shedding, you cannot withdraw your money, you see. So yeah, cash is there.
I prefer cash because with cash, there are less chances of you being robbed.
I prefer card because it is reliable and it is convenient and you don't have to stand on the line whenever you pay. So for me, card works all the best.
Well, that's the word on the street. After the break, we speak to Visa. The company calls itself a leader in digital payments, and we hone in on the data it has on that front for small and medium enterprises specifically. So don't touch that remote. We're back after this short break.